Hello, I am Jake, and in this video, we are going to be building on top of our runner class, which allows us to run programs with our program. That's what the runner class does. We're going to build on top of that and make a UI for it. And then in the very final video, sorry it's taking so long, we are going to make it so that not only can we have a UI for it, but we're going to have a system tray icon where you can open up your UI from that. I was going to do it in one video, a little longer than I expected though. So we're going to keep it in two. All right. So if you want, you can watch the other videos. They're probably useful to watch. So check them out right up here. There-ish. And great. If you do, come back here and we'll keep going. If you don't want to watch them, I'll give you a really, really fast rundown on where we're at. All right, so this is the runner class. I have a couple of things I've added here, which you can ignore. This part we'll ignore. But basically, this is a class that we just initialize down here. I've kind of commented all of this out because we're not going to be using this now. But basically, what this is that if we have this runner and this like this, then we can instantiate our class, we can get some user input, and the user can kind of type in some stuff to be able to run a program, delete a program, add it to a list. But the awesome thing with this is that we also can use our config file, which is right here, which we have another class for, which actually reads this and parses the config into these little application data classes, which again, if you want, you can go and watch the videos before. But what this is doing is creating a simple runner class, creating a dictionary of threads, which we can reference later if we want to. Then we're creating this config, then we're parsing the config, and then we're kind of allowing us to run an application by passing this or calling this start process, which is basically creating a sub process by instantiating Python with the application and a list of inputs. Now, that might be a lot. Don't worry. It's important, but it's okay if you don't fully understand what's going on, because we're kind of going to go over some of it throughout the video. So let's kind of start, I guess. Okay. Yes, let's do that. We are first going to, I guess, might as well add some things here. So we're going to actually add this run application UI function. So run application currently takes in a program index. And then based off of that, we ask for some user input. So we're actually going to make it so that the user can input things through a GUI or a graphical user interface, just a window, a box with some text input. So we don't need this stuff printing out into a console. So we are just going to have run application UI where it takes in an index and some input, and then we're just going to run start process again, which is just the same thing that we have. We're also going to add delete application UI, which is basically doing almost the same thing as this index, except we're not asking for confirmation here because we can ask for confirmation in the UI. And other than that, I also have add application UI, which again isn't asking for all this stuff because we can verify that stuff within our UI, but we're just going to add the application and call update config. And when we do that with update config, which goes to here, we're actually updating our YAML file, which means that when we run our program again, everything will show up just like it was saved. Cool. So let's go into the UI. So I do have a couple things here, but I'll go over what we have. We're going to use tkinter for this, which is a UI framework. And the main reason I'm using tkinter here is because it has the best, how do I say this? tkinter allows you to create a file picker that is basically just like native to whatever your operating system is. I tried using a couple other frameworks that looked nicer than tkinter, but their file picker was kind of garbage. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to build one from scratch. Maybe there's ways to do it, but I found tkinter worked great for me. So that's what we're going to use. So for this, if you want to follow along to some extent, you can do pip install tkinter. That's what this is. And tkinter, it might actually come with some versions of Python by now because it's a pretty like well-rounded UI framework. But yeah, so we're going to create this class runner UI. And within its init method, we're going to say self runner equals runner. So we're going to immediately instantiate this runner class, which is from our other file. Then within here, we're going to say self.root equals root. And then root.title equals runner app. Subscribe if you want. Okay. And then that's all we're going to do for now. We're going to add a bunch of stuff to this within this video. So don't you worry. Then next thing I have here is runner app equals none and root equals none. And then we basically have all of this here. Honestly, we kind of just need, well, this. Let's just do this. And then this stuff we'll kind of save until the next video because it's not really needed right now. So let's just go ahead and I think there's a way to make this smaller or whatever. I'll just delete it for now. All right, so here we don't even need that. We don't even need this part. Awesome. So if I go ahead and run this, we can see that, I am running this, but we haven't updated our runner, or I removed the runner, so it instantiates itself. We don't want to do that where we're waiting for users' input. So we're going to go ahead and run this again. And when we run our UI, this new UI file, we get this UI, and it's beautiful, and it does nothing yet. But let's add some stuff to it. So I have a lot of this already coded in a separate file, but I'm going to start to add things to it and kind of copy and paste because, number one, it's going to be faster for me rather than typing everything. And it just kind of gives me more time rather than you waiting for me to type stuff where I can just explain it. So let's go ahead and do that. Boop, 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 boop. All right. So we've copied this in here. And then we're also going to add in a call for this to our class. All right. So I understand I've put a lot of stuff in here. And you know what? We can even comment this out for now. I'm going to just get rid of this for now. All right, I've added a lot. I understand. So let's go over everything. So the first thing we're doing is creating a frame. And a frame is going to be for the list box and its scroll bar. Now, we don't really need the scroll. We need the scroll bar because if we have a lot of applications within our runner UI, we want to be able to scroll to see them. Secondly, we're going to create our scroll bar. Actually, sorry, let me go over frame.pack. So pack is basically how do you want this to be laid out within your UI? So we're going to fill it in both directions, width and height, and we want it to expand to fill it. So then that's basically all that the frame is doing. You're creating a frame where you can put stuff in the frame. Pretty simple. Next, we're creating our scroll bar, and we are doing scroll bar and then frame. And typically within tkinter, whenever you create something new using like tk.scrollbar or .listbox, the first thing you set here is where you're putting it. So we're actually adding it to the frame. That's what we're doing here. And we're going to orient this vertically. So it's going to be a list going down. If it was horizontal, then we would be going left to right. We don't want that. Secondly, we're going to be doing scrollbar.pack, which is the side. We want it to pack to the right. And we're going to have it fill in the y-axis. To be honest, you can play around with these, but this is what I've found worked best. So I'm not going to go too deep on the pack stuff because I'm not a full expert on it, but it's worked for me. All right, next we're going to do a list box. So you know what? Let's actually just, before we do this list box, let's comment this out and run this and see what we have. So it's really small. I don't even know if I can make this any bigger. Beautiful. So here we go. We have a scroll bar and nothing in it. Perfect. So maybe we shouldn't even bother showing that, but that's okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is create a list box. But this list box is something we're actually going to set to self.listbox so we can reference it later. And that's important because we're going to have this function called update list. Now, when we create our list box, again, we're setting it to the frame. And then we're going to say the Y scroll command is called scroll bar set. So when you scroll in the Y direction, we're going to set the scroll bar, which is a different thing here. So we're kind of referencing our list box to the scroll bar. So that way they kind of interact with each other. Then active style is this dot box. To be honest, I don't actually remember what this, it's how it's selected, I believe. So it's like the box around the thing. If you select an item within the list. And then we have the font, Helvetica, why not? And then the select mode where you can select a single thing. So if you select one item and then you select another item, only one is selected at a time. And this is important because we want to be able to delete things and run things. So you don't want to run multiple things. So we want to select one thing. Awesome. And then we're going to do our pack, side of left, fill of both, expand if true. If you're following along, just copy that. And again, feel free to play around with whatever you want. Next, we're going to do scrollbar.config is command self-listbox.yview. Again, this is wiring up the scroll bar to have its configuration be based off of the list box, because ultimately you want to be able to scroll and have the list box and the scroll bar interact with each other because they are two separate tkinter objects. So awesome. Next, we're going to call update list. Now this is where the real magic happens, because if we don't do this, we can see that our UI, well, it looks a little bit better than before. This scroll bar now has nothing there because it's linked up and there's nothing in our list box because our list box is effectively empty. And you can see the frame actually, if you really squint maybe my video quality won't be good enough, but there's a little border thing there. Okay, cool. So let's do update list, and I'll just show you what this is and then I'll go over it. So when we do this, we can see that we now have convert web P to PNG. And if we go over and look at our config YAML, that's exactly what this is. So the way we're doing this is by calling update list, which will reference the list box. Again, why we have to have self.listbox. And then we're going to delete from the 0 until the end of the list box. Now, the reason we're doing this is because we want to delete everything from the list because we're then going to immediately populate the list. That's what we're doing here. Then we are saying for an app in our self.runner, which again is the class that we made in the last video, we are going to list all of the applications, which again is basically this. And then we are going to, for each application, we're going to do self.listbox insert tk end. So at the end, we're going to insert at the end of the current list. And then we're going to insert just this fapp name. So this basically means that we're going to get the name from the app and add it to the list. So if we had 100 items within our config, we would then add 100 list items. I don't actually know if I've gone over this part. So let me just really quickly say, root, you just create this tkinter object. Runner app is we're just instantiating the runner UI with the root. And then we're calling root.main loop, which is just basically connecting it to the main loop for the program, which is ensuring that the program doesn't stop while the UI is active. So my bad. All right, awesome though. We have a list. It's populated now with values from our config, which is really cool. Jumping a little bit back to something I mentioned in the last video, this is kind of where the magic of breaking down a project comes in. Because once you have a project broken down into all these little steps, which I will make a video on because I know somebody commented saying that they would like that, and thank you for the comment. Feels great. But once you have things broken down, you can then reuse what you've already done. So in this case, we want to be able to add something to our UI. But the nice thing is I already have a way through my runner class to add things to my UI, right? I have this add application or add application UI. And that just means that I don't have to figure out how to add something to my application or even how to add something to my config. I just need, and I even know how to run things, right? Or delete things. I knew how to do a bunch of stuff based off of my old class or my previous class from the last video. So all I really need to do in this video or in this UI file, and I guess this video, is actually just hook the UI up to the runner. So that's a kind of, it's a great reason on why breaking down some projects into smaller steps is really powerful. So I'm sorry if I'm like, I'll get off my soapbox now about all that, but I think it's worth mentioning. All right, so let's add in this, which I did delete last time, but we'll go ahead and do this. And then we're gonna copy in the on item selected, and we're gonna go ahead and put that just down here. I feel like Bob Ross or something. So what is happening here? Well, we are now saying that when an item in the list box, we're using this self.listbox.bind, and then this listbox select event, which is something that you can, it's the sequence string, which is effectively an event that happens within tkinter. And we're saying when this happens, so an item within the list box is selected, execute this on item selected function. And that is this function here. And then this function, we are taking the event and we're getting the widget from the event, which is basically the list box. And we're going to find the selection for it, which is this selection. I feel like it should be like, cur selection. Cur selection is a good one. Anyways, if there's a selection, all right. So if there's a selection, then we are going to get the index of it from the selection object, which I can kind of go over what this actually looks like through some print statements. But basically, we're going to get the index of it, and then we don't actually need this item anymore. I can delete that. And then we're going to set the self.selected item index to whatever that index is. So if I go ahead and print off selection here, and we go ahead and run this, and now we have this here, and I click this, we can see we get this tuple with a 0 set. And if we had multiple items and I clicked the second one, we would have a 1 selected. So now self-selected item index is now set to 0. So this is super helpful because we basically need the user to click something and then click a button to act on that. So we're kind of doing the first half of that, where the user can now click something, we know what they've clicked, and then they can click a button to, act on whatever this thing is. All right, cool. So we're going to close that and let's keep adding. So now that we can select things, let's make it so that we can delete them, I guess. That's probably the easiest of the things, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and grab this here and paste in this. So here we are creating a delete script, self.delete script, which is just, again, referencing it so we can reference it later. And then we're creating this TK button and we're attaching it to the root, not the frame. So we're not adding it to the frame, we're adding it to the root. So this means it's going to be added below the frame. And then we're saying that the title or the text for this button is delete script. And when it is clicked, we're going to call this delete script function. And finally, we pack it with a padding of 20. So let me go ahead and define delete script. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And remember, we need self because this is within a class. And delete script. We're going to go ahead and just do this actually. And here we go. So if the self-selected item index is none, then we can return, because if nothing's selected, we don't want to delete something. Otherwise, we're going to say self.runner.deleteApplicationUI, right? Just using the stuff we've already implemented to now delete this self-selected item index. And now that we've done that, we've updated the application list within our runner and our config. We are then going to do self.update list because now, well, the list of applications is different. So we want to update our UI. And then finally, which is also a very important step here, is we're going to do self.selected item index is none. So now or equals none. Now we're actually setting it back to none, which means that if you just started spamming this button, you wouldn't delete a bunch of things because the first time you would say that, oh, something has been selected because the user clicked something before, we would delete it, we would update the list, and then we would find or set it to none, and then the user clicks it the second time, and then we would say, oh, it's none. We don't have to do anything. So let's try this out. If we go ahead and run this, and we click this, and we click delete script, it's all gone. And if we go ahead and run this again, it's gone. Perfect. But now we don't have any scripts. So let's make a way to add one. So we'll close that. And let me copy in a couple things. So first things first, we're going to add a new button similar to the delete script button. And we're going to add this as add script. Surprise, surprise. And we're going to have this be a TK button and we're adding it to the root. Basically everything is the exact same as the delete script. And we're calling it add script. And this is going to call self.openAddScript. So what the heck is that? Well, this one's a bit bigger. A lot bigger. We're copying like 80 lines here. Yep. All right. So let's go over this. So open add script. So once we click open add script, we are going to open up a pop-up window. So a pop-up is this tk.top level, and we're linking it to the root. That means that if the root is closed, then this pop-up will also be closed because it's linked to the root. Then we're going to have this pop-up, give it a title. We're calling it file chooser. Let's maybe call it app chooser or adding an app. Everything is a little more fun with an exclamation mark, right? Wait, here, you know what? There we go. Perfect. Then we're going to do, well, we need some way for the user to input some stuff because, well, we have our two scripts here where we can do web to PNG or WebP to PNG and also make transparent. All right. Anyways, we have an entry and we are adding it to the pop-up. Like I said, most things, the first value is going to be where you're adding it to. And then we're going to set the width of this to 50. Then we are creating a radio button. Now a radio button, if you've certainly used them, and basically what they are is it's one of those buttons where you can click one, but you can't select multiple. It's not like a checkbox. It's the little circular buttons. That's what a radio button is. So what we're doing here is, first off, we're creating this radio button variable. This is the thing that actually tracks which one is selected. And so that's this tk int var. And then we're setting it to be 1, which is just the default selection. Then we are creating 3 radio buttons, and we are creating them and assigning them to the pop-up. We're setting the text for each of them to file, string, and number. And then we're setting the variable to radio var, which is what we just created. Basically, what is it referencing? And then finally, the value of each of them. So the first one is 1, which will be the default. So file is default, and then 2, and then 3. So the way this works then is that if you click a different radio button, so if I click string, for instance, when the UI is up, it will then set this radio var to be 2 because that's what its value is. And the reason this is super useful is because then later we can just reference this radio var value. Awesome. Cool. Then we are packing this just to make it packed within the width. And that's it for the radio buttons. Then comes the tricky stuff. This is why this is more than just this pop-up. The file path. So just like before, nobody wants to type this, right? Like finding a path to a file or whatever, helper packages, web PNG stuff. Nobody wants to do that. You want something that pops up and you just go and you find your file and you click it and you're done, right? way nicer. So we're going to do that. So first things first, we're going to create this file path label. And this is going to say that no file has been selected. And it's a sunken text label, which means it just has like a little box that's around it. So it looks like it looks deeper, I guess. Then we're also adding it to the pop-up. And we're setting its width to 50, which is just the same as the other input width. And then we're packing it with some padding. Then we are creating a browse button, and this is where all the magic happens. So we're creating our button similar to other buttons before, but we're then going to call browse files. I'll just kind of go over this real quick. Then we add two more buttons, save, which goes over save script, which I will talk about shortly. And then close button, which just closes the pop-up. So it will call self.popup destroy. Notice there's nothing like this, because if we did that, it would actually just execute that function. So we're referencing the function. We're not actually calling the function. Probably should have mentioned that before. So let's go to browse files. Browse files, surprisingly simple, right? Yeah. So browse files is basically just saying that we're going to get a file path, and we're going to get it from this file dialog.ask open file name. Ask open file name or file dialog comes from tkinter, which is why we're using tkinter, because that's so nice. I tried to use this in other things, and man, was it a problem. So this blocks. So as soon as this pops up, we're basically pausing on this line. And then once something has been selected or canceled, then we will come to if file path. And if there's a file path, then we're just going to go ahead and set the file path label, which is the one that we created right here, which is why we're referencing it through self. And then we're going to configure it, setting its text. So setting the text of this label, which, this label, which used to be no file selected. And now we're setting it to the file path. So that's all browse files is doing. I know it's only 3 lines of code, but it is so much harder in other things. So anyways, it's good stuff. So save new script. There's more stuff going on here, but that's totally fine. So what we do here is we get the app name, and we get that from this app name object. So that's just the input. So we're going to get the app name. We're then going to get the file type from the radio file type. And whenever we are storing this in any other instance, we're always storing a string. So we're actually going to just set the new file type here to the string, because that's what we care about. So we're just have an if else if for these 3 types. And then the file path is we're getting the text from the file path label, which we just set down here. Pretty simple. So we're just getting all this stuff. We're basically setting all of that up, and then we're going to show a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to do this? So we're going to have another pop-up, which will have this here, and it'll still be associated with the root. It says it's called confirm add. And then from here, we will have this file path label, which is just our label here. And it will say, we will add the name, and then on a new line, the type, and then the path. And again, it's this sunken thing. And then we're going to have not a close button, a save button, where we will allow you to save, and then a close button, which again, will just close this pop-up. This should actually be adding pop-up. Finding bugs. So when you click save script will then come down here. I know there's a lot of functions, but it's nice to break things up so it's not just one big function. And here we will go ahead, I can get rid of this print, but we're going to then call add application UI. We already have all of these values set, so that's awesome. Then we're going to call update list because we now have a new application added, so we'll update the list. Again, when we call this add application UI, our config will also be updated. And then finally, we're going to destroy our adding pop-up and our other pop-up because we don't need them anymore. So that was a big explanation, probably the biggest one of this video. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it looks like. So we have this here. We have runner app, subscribe. and we have add script. We click add script. We get this adding an app happy face. And then we can call it something. So let's call this web p to png. Yay. This is a file type. We can select different things here, but there is no file selected. So we can go ahead and click browse files. When we do that, this pops up here. We have our PNG here, or our web p to PNG. We go ahead and click open. That then sets this value here. Looks beautiful. Well, I'll just keep that like that. And then we go ahead and click save. And when we click save, it will then call into save script. It will basically collect the values, show this pop up for confirmation. And then when we click the confirmation, it will add it to the UI. So let's go ahead and open these and we will click save. We get a confirmation. We will add name webp to PNG, yay, type of file, and then it's referencing this. Probably should make this a bit wider, but it's okay. We go ahead and click confirm, and there we go. We now have webp to PNG, yay. All right, so far we have the UI. It will show everything from the config. We can delete things from it. We can add things from it. We're basically done. But we don't have a way to run anything, which is kind of the whole point. So let's add that in next, and that'll be the last thing we're going to do in this video, but it's going to be pretty cool. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to add a new button, kind of using a lot of the stuff we've already done for run script. And it's just a new button called run script. And we're going to call this show run prompt. Now, let me copy this show run prompt in, and I think this is all I need here. We'll go ahead and come down here. And there we go. So show run prompt. It takes an index. We don't really need to worry about that right now. That's kind of for the next video. Spoiler alert. But if there's no selected index, we're going to return. Then we're going to get the app from the list of applications because we want to run something. We want to know what app we're going to run. So then we're going to create a pop-up with the title of the app as the title of the pop-up. Then, I don't know why I have this. That's from old stuff probably. Then, this is because I have it specific for this. Right, okay, that's fair. I'll leave this in for now, I guess. Maybe I'll update it later. So right now, we're only supporting files, which is why I have this here. That's my bad. I thought I was finished with everything. But hey, if you want to support more than just files, leave a comment. How do you think you do that? So here, we're going to have this input value, and it's going to be attached to our run pop-up, and we're saying no files selected. You can probably see where this is going. So then we have a browse button, exact same as before, except we're just referencing a different one because we want to update a different value. Technically, we could make it so that instead we pass in some value here, potentially, but this is kind of just simpler. So a browse button, we're going to go ahead and show the pop-up. Then the input value, which is our label here, is what's going to be set with the file that we pick. And then we're going to have a run button. Again, copy and pasted some code clearly. I've written, once you create one button, you just copy and paste it everywhere. So here we're then going to have another button to run and then another button to close. This one, pretty simple. Again, just destroying. Run app though. What are we doing here? Well, pretty simple. We're calling runner, run application UI, and then the index that we have selected, which should map the index we have stored with whatever the input value's text is, which is again, input value is the label, and that's it. And then once it's run, we're going to destroy our pop-up. And that's it. We can now run a script. So let's go ahead and do this. So we'll run Python UI, and we will click web p to PNG. We will click run script. I know this UI is beautiful. I know that I should be a user experience UX person, but well, maybe, probably not. Then we see this. We see that no file selected, but we have to select a file. So we'll click browse file. In this case, we're converting a WebP to a PNG. This here is a WebP for an app that I'm making, which if you want to try out, throw a comment down below, because maybe you can be an alpha tester and get one of these little alpha tester guys. We're going to go ahead and click open. And then once we click run, here, I'll bring this right over here. Once we click run, we should see a PNG pop up right here. That will be for the WebP. And we'll click run. And there we go. Now we have alpha tester PNG and alpha tester WebP. That's because we're running this simple script here. And that's it. Now the UI works. Now we can add whatever scripts we want. So we can add like make white transparent. Takes a file. Everything kind of takes a file right now. But hey, whatever. It's kind of the harder part, I would say. We go ahead and confirm that. Now we have make white transparent. I'm just kind of showing that you can do all of this during it running rather than closing and having to whatever. We can run the script for this. We can go ahead and do this for happy face. And if we go ahead and click run, then we'll see a temp file get created and this transparent happy face. So we have the old happy face and the transparent happy face. So that's it. This is our UI. And in the next video, we're going to make this UI actually live within a little system tray icon. So that way we can actually just basically make some of these pop-ups come from the system tray, so we don't have to have this UI open and whatnot all the time. And just kind of immediately just say like right click, select the app you want within the system tray icon. It pops up the selector you want. And then maybe you can even drag and drop a folder or a file or something like that into it. And there you go. It all works. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. So subscribe if you want to see that. Please give this video some love. It super helps out the video and the channel a lot. So that would be great. I would very much appreciate that. And if you can't wait until next week and you want to know how you can make a system tray icon in Python, check out this video right here, where we actually make it so that you can put files into a folder and we clean it up for you. This could be your desktop. I've seen some people's desktops. You might need to know how to do that. So check that out right here. But that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed. And I'm Jake. Bye-bye.